These must be the colors of returning, and this must be the way the darkness tastes. I heard it long before I ever listened. Here in a hailstorm in the bottom of the lake.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast, where we talk with songwriters and musicians about the craft of songwriting, music making, all the good stuff. My name is Mike, and our guests on this episode are the members of the Ballroom Thieves, Callie Peters, Martin Early, and Devin Mauch. This was the first time I have interviewed three people at once, but they made it easy on me, talking one at a time in an orderly and civilized manner. Ballroom Thieves have a great new record out, Unlovely. This is a collection of songs that are reflections on, maybe more accurate to say reactions to, the state of the world, and more particularly the United States over the past few years. There is some anger here, but also hope, and some really good tunes. Callie, Martin, and Devin were thoughtful and honest in our discussion. We covered a lot of ground, including how their lives as a band and as individuals within the band have changed over the years. I really enjoyed the conversation. So we talked a lot about their lives as a band on the road, and how that influenced their music. In particular, the couple-year period in which they had no permanent homes to speak of, they decided to live as vagabonds as they toured endlessly. And we recorded this conversation a few weeks ago, and here's what has happened since then. First, the band was traveling in their van on I-80 in Wyoming, and they were involved in a snow and ice-induced pileup involving dozens of tractor trailers and cars. They were unhurt, as was their van. They ended up on the snowy median with an 18-wheeler jackknifed around them. I-80 was then completely closed for almost 2 days to clear it up, and the band holed up nearby waiting, missing a couple of gigs. Then, more recently, the band, along with pretty much every other touring musical act, has canceled or postponed all their live shows for the time being due to the COVID-19. These events highlight the difficulties and the fragility of the business model most touring bands face today. They make their money by doing their shows on the road across the country, and many things can go wrong in their tight budgets as they try to do so. So let's maybe keep these artists in mind, along with all the others in our communities who are facing uncertainties and tough times right now, and maybe find some ways to help. If you're planning on going to shows that have now been canceled, maybe buy some vinyls or CDs online, or in a record store for that matter, or buy some merch. Maybe take some newfound free time and share your favorite music with friends. Get these artists some new fans. And let's not forget about the power of music. As we hunker down and spend less time interacting with others, we need to remember we are all still connected. Good music reminds us of these connections. It lets us participate in the collective unconscious and celebrate it, even when we are not physically together. I am very grateful for the work and sacrifice these young musicians put in over their careers to bring their art into the world. I would like to sincerely thank Eric Jones for helping to make this conversation happen. He made what could have been a complicated situation work very smoothly, so thanks. So let's get to it. Here's our Tell You What discussion with the Ballroom Thieves.
How can we wait without question when all of the world is burning? And suddenly all on our way in at once, so far. Lying awake like the morning might take us where words can't follow, waiting to find our way in.
Okay, Martin, Callie, and Devin, Ballroom Thieves, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
I'll tell you what, the podcast. I am in Tell You What headquarters in the Epiplex in Evanston, Illinois. You just told me that you were in New York City right now?
Yep. We are posted up on the Lower East Side for a couple days right now ahead of our record release on Friday. Just doing some press things and, here to talk to you and take in all the splendors that is New York City on a gray, rainy spring day.
Well, we do have one constraint, as you told me. Your meter is going to run out, so we'll try and have a nice chat and get you out in time to feed the meter properly. But when this episode is aired, which will be in the future for us, your new record, Unlovely, will be out in the world. But as we're talking now, as you just mentioned, which is in the past, actually, tomorrow is the day the record will be released, right?
That's right, yeah. February 14th.
Yeah, pretty exciting and busy time for you all, I'm sure. I've had a chance to listen to the record. I think it's great. I think it's adventurous and compelling all at the same time. You all must be pretty happy with it, pretty proud of what you've done.
Yeah, we're proud and just really excited to get the work out there. As we completed the record about a year ago, so we've just been preparing for this moment for a long time, and I think it's a little surreal that it's actually here. So
these things seem to take longer than they used to, getting a record out into the world.
Yeah, it's it truly takes a team of folks to do it right, and that was really important to us to just dot all our I's, cross all our T's, and luckily we have a really wonderful team around us that helped us prep for the moment. But yeah, it takes a long time.
Okay, so let's go back in time. Since we have all three of you here, let's touch briefly on each of your backgrounds, if we can, your early years, how you came to music. Martin, I understand your father was a musician, folk musician. I assume that's how you got involved?
More or less, yeah. And he still is a musician. He just doesn't do that as his primary career. He would if he could, I think. He grew up in a household where being a musician was not considered a reasonable way to make a living. And so, he kind of always kept that as a hobby, which is sad, but now he gets to live vicariously through us, and he's incredibly supportive as a result. So that's kind of the silver lining there, I guess.
So you picked up the guitar then at an early age?
I started out playing drums when I was in elementary school, and then started playing guitar when I was in high school. And my dad kind of taught me a couple chords, and then I did the rest from there.
And when did you first start writing your own music?
In high school as well. Probably, soon after starting to play guitar, I started writing terrible, terrible songs and singing very, very terribly as well. And so much so that my high school girlfriend's younger sister once told me that I would never ever be a singer because I'm just not a good singer. That was after we had broken up.
Well, maybe she's listening.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so.
All right, Devin, what was your first experiences with picking up an instrument?
My mom started my brother and I and herself on guitar lessons when I was about, I think, maybe seven or 8, and my brother was 5. And the three of us took guitar lessons together. And
wait, your mother and the two of you did?
Yep. Yeah.
That's great.
My parents are both musically inclined, but really hadn't ever stuck with an instrument or anything. They're more into theater and singing. But she wanted to try the guitar and brought her sons along on that journey, and it definitely inspired, music to become a pretty constant part of both of our lives from there on out. So I did guitar for a little while. I've kind of jumped around, trying out different instruments my whole life, and really drums was the first time I really did a kind of deeper dive with drums and percussion was with this band. So
interesting.
Yeah, started young and just kept trying different things, and was always sort of inspired to explore different instruments and take lessons. And
so you and Martin kind of traded places. He started on the drums, you started on the guitar.
Yeah, I guess so, a little bit. He's still a pretty great drummer. I am no longer, I would not call myself even a good guitarist. I'll play by myself only if I know there's absolutely no one around listening, pretty much. But it's still fun to pick it up and hack away.
Right. How about you, Callie? How did you get started with music?
I started playing cello when I was 10.
Okay.
There was a demonstration at school. We could start a string instrument when we were in 3rd or 4th grade. And I just fell in love with the cello. I had to have one.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. It called to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautiful. And it was the lowest, biggest instrument displayed, demonstrated. I really loved it. It looked like a challenge to carry around. It seemed like a good instrument to play if you wanted to be made fun of on the bus. And apparently I wanted that.
Several positive endorsements there.
Very positive.
Did I read that you, when you first came into the band, you were not writing music for the band at first, and that changed?
That's right.
So what do you think? Yeah, what do you think? What do you think changed that brought you to writing music?
I was always composing. I was just not writing lyrics. I just didn't have much of an interest, and I didn't think I would be very good at it, but I never really tried. And I wanted to sing more, and the best way to sing, I think, is to write words for yourself. I think you can really learn how your voice works with your own lyrics behind it. So yeah. I wanted to try that out.
So had you not been a writer? No, you weren't writing poetry or journaling or anything before this?
No, I mean, I would journal a bit. I would frantically write down events or dreams or theories. I always have a lot of theories going. I just never put them together in any sort of artful way until I tried writing songs.
And how do you think that your writing has changed even in this brief period since you started? Have you noticed a steep learning curve or some kind of steep change in how you go about it?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm still finding out just how I write. I think I've had the greatest teacher around. I've looked to Martin's writing to help my own, and I feel so lucky that such an amazing writer is right next to me in life, and I get to learn sort of my voice through how he chooses to write. So I think I'm still learning.
That's great.
He's looking at me with dead eyes from that compliment. So.
I'll leave that there. So earlier in your band life, there was a time, as I understand it, when the three of you were basically vagabonds, right? You lived out of your vehicles on the road. Do I have that right?
That's exactly right.
What was that like? How did that happen?
Well, we just kept saying yes to every single show and every single tour that came along. And it became ridiculous to send our rent money home. So we put all our things in our parents' basements and storage units and started just living out of our van for the many days on tour. I think there was one year where we were off the road for 13 days total. 9, 13, I don't know. We lost our final count. That was a couple years ago. That was truly a bad time.
Okay, so now you all live in Maine, right?
Yep.
Any of you can answer this if you have a take on it. How do you think either or both of these experiences has shaped your music? We talk about the sense of place in music and in creativity. So you've had a period of time of having no home, right? And now as a band, and now you live in a very particular and unique part of the country as your home. So how do you think either one of those time periods has influenced who you are as a band creatively?
I think that's a great question. This is Martin, by the way. I think it's interesting when you start out becoming a musician, because usually your first record or your first couple records are really well, kind of planned out. You've spent years working on these songs, and finally you get to record them and release them, and then if it works decently well, then the next 2 years you're on the road as much as you can be on the road, and you don't really have the same time and the same atmosphere to to get creative from a writing perspective. So the road often can be a pretty sterile place when it comes to songwriting, or at least it was for me.
Right.
After we started, and so it's kind of weird because you spend all this time and money and energy putting out music, and then all of a sudden, then it's like, okay, now do that same thing again, but in half the time while you're traveling around the country, and it's just not really. It's not the same, so you have to adapt if you want to continue to be productive, I think. And so we started figuring out how to write while on the road. And, you know, part of being a vagabond and being, you know, homeless, for lack of a better word, is that there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of sadness, and there's a lot of emotion that comes with that. And so that is generally a pretty good catalyst for songwriting. So that's why our second album, Deadeye, is pretty sad, you know. It deals with a lot of those issues of being on the road and not having a home and being away from your family and loved ones, and you know, kind of leaving your established, or what you thought was your established life behind, and just completely uprooting everything you know. So yeah, now that we're back in a place where we all have steady home lives, and we all have a place where we can lay our heads, now things are looking up again a little bit, and it's more possible to write about other things other than being depressed all the time. So so now, you know, now we turn our attention to the things that are important in our lives now. So that's why some of these songs deal with politics, or deal with, you know, general goings on in the country around us, and less about how depressed we are on the road. There's still some of that, you know. There's still some songs about sleeplessness and touring and the toll that it takes, but yeah, it's definitely an up and down kind of graph, I guess, if you will.
Right. This is something I hear from a lot of musicians these days, that the business model as it exists now for bands, particularly younger bands, is to be on the road, and that's how they make their money. And that they run into this issue of, now I have to create while I'm living this life on the road, and I think a lot of bands weren't ready for that. So they have to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree with that, because, you know, that's not how you get started. No one gets started by touring and then writing. So it's kind of strange that you have to do one thing and then completely adapt if you want to continue to be successful.
Okay, let's talk about collaboration in both the song writing and the song creating, recording process for you all. I'm guessing there's not one formulaic way the songs tend to come together, but how generally would you describe the collaborative process between you now, and how has that maybe changed over time?
Generally, we Callie and I write the songs, and so we live together. We're engaged. We are rarely not in the same room, so so we write together, and that's generally how the songs get made. So
literally from the beginning, the writing is together?
In this for this album, mostly, yeah. So this album kind of marks a change, because previously we would write separately. So I would write a bunch of songs, and then I would work with Callie to kind of shape them, and Callie would write a bunch of songs and then work with me to shape them, and we'd kind of help each other out in that way. And now, since we live together, and since, you know, we've kind of combined our lives, it's becoming easier for us to work on things as a writing team right from the get-go, which has been a really fun experiment so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of trust involved in a writing collaboration, right? So as your personal relationship has changed, you've seen that level maybe of trust changed as well?
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, part of the thing that makes us a compatible writing team is that we have different strengths and different weaknesses. So, you know, I tend to focus on writing lyrics, and Callie's really good at coming up with melodies and, you know, putting those lyrics into the song and fitting them in the right way, and coming up with creative ways of making that kind of thing happen. So she's kind of the Elton John, and I'm kind of the Bernie Taupin. But she's much more attractive than Elton, so nothing against Elton. He's an attractive man, but...
He is an attractive man.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be working out pretty well. Let's talk about in the arranging and recording process in terms of collaboration. A lot of your songs have unique, very creative arrangements. How do those generally come together? Are you coming to the studio with ideas in that regard, or are those kind of happening when the three of you are together actually in the recording studio?
Most of the time we come to the studio with ideas, and those ideas are in varied stages of being fleshed out, so sometimes we have demos where we've already kind of planned everything out and everything is on tape somewhere, and other times it's just an idea in someone's head, and then we try to make that happen in the studio. And our producer, Jerry Streeter, he has played a big role in that as well, because he looks at the songs from a different perspective and then tends to come up with ideas on the fly about what kind of guitar sound we need here, or what kind of cello thing should go in this section, or we need some sort of string part here or something like that. So once we get into the studio, it is a little more collaborative and free creatively than it is during the actual writing process, just because when we're just writing, it's usually just Callie and me. So
Right.
There's not a lot of other input in that initial phase.
Okay, let's talk about the album, Unlovely. It's pretty clear this is a collection of songs that are a response to what you see happening in the world now over the last few years, let's say. This may seem like a dumb question. Let me see if I can frame it properly. Do you see yourselves as artists who would generally be writing about social issues, right? Or is this recent work more a product of these times? So I guess what I'm asking is, if someone else were president, do you think your songs would still be mostly reflections or reactions to social and political issues?
I think that answer might be different for the three of us. So
Okay.
If I were to answer for myself, I don't think I would be writing as much about political issues if someone else were president, depending on how good or bad that person is, I guess. But in an ideal world, we would never have to write about anything political, because in an ideal world, I think politics should just be kind of boring, and it's kind of a machine that does the work for you as the citizen, without you having to worry too much. But that's obviously not the reality that we live in, so here we are.
Yep.
But I think Callie might have a different answer to that, so I'm going to pass the mic to her.
I think if we had a different president, that would be really nice. And
First of all,
but I think I would still be writing about how this world is not set up for people like me. Yeah, I think I would still be talking about social issues. I can't seem to, I'm kind of embarrassed about this, but I have yet to write a love song to Martin or anyone. I can't seem to do it.
right?
All my songs end up being about how the world affects people that don't belong in it, or the world we've made, how people don't quite belong in that world. So I think I will always write about that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the song Unlovely, the title track. It features vocals from Darling Side, who are awesome, by the way. We are big fans of Darling Side here.
Yes, we love them.
Their vocals on this song kind of provide maybe a happy sounding, ironic counterpart to the anger in the lyrics. Was that the intention there?
That was exactly the intention.
Yeah, you seem like you're addressing a very specific you in these lyrics, reading your mean eyes through a million little screens. Now we're living in the house you built. Can you talk about this song a little bit?
Yeah, it's definitely an angry protest song. It's kind of a throw your hands up in the air, I can't believe this is happening sort of bunch of lyrics. It's definitely supposed to be kind of ironic sounding, very, very lush and happy, but very dark and scary.
Well, I think it works very well.
Thanks.
Standing in line for the riot. Just another sunny day. I found a couple birds who sing a tale. figured unlovely. It's a lie we have to listen to, yeah. It's a lie we have to listen to, yeah. It's a lie we have to listen to, yeah. You're out of time.
Okay, you all released a great series of cover songs a little while back. I'm a particular fan of the Joe Pug Hymn 101 version that you did. I think it's great. And recently, in the run-up to this album, you also released a couple of alternate versions of some of these new songs, an acoustic version of one, right, and an instrumental version. This might seem like a weird question. You can answer it any way you like. But is there, when you think about a song that you're creating, is there one version, like a true version of a song in your head, and there are then different takes on that? Or is the song something more elusive that expresses itself in different ways?
I think it's the more elusive one. I've noticed lately when we it's kind of cool, and it's a little sad too. When we record a song and then we put that song out into the world, that's the version that everybody knows, and that version becomes the song, even though the song existed without its recorded self. So it's not very freeing, and we have to remain in control of the words and the melody, and we have to realize that we can remake it and change it, and that one version does not equal the song. It's more elusive than that, for sure.
So maybe when you are going out to perform the songs live, you might purposely do different versions of a song?
Definitely, yeah.
I also think, to add to that, I particularly enjoy, after we've written a song and we've recorded it and we've played it a certain way for a long time, then changing things up and reimagining the song, there's something really special about that. And that can go any direction in terms of what you do with it, but in our situation sometimes that means an acoustic song turns into an electric song, or vice versa, or we slow a song down, or a song that I generally sing gets sung by Callie, or vice versa, and those things I think kind of reinvigorate a song that maybe has lost some of its luster, at least in our eyes, because we just play it the same way night in and night out. So sometimes that's a really fun way to give a song kind of a second wind.
Right. Let's talk about the song Tenebrist. I will admit, I looked this word up.
Me too.
Here's a definition that I found. A style of art where there are violent contrasts of light and dark, and where darkness becomes a dominating feature of the image. To quote a lyric from the song, we all muddy the water to make it seem less shallow. There's definitely been a lot of water muddying going on lately, but maybe I sense some hope in this song.
Yeah, a little bit. I think the song definitely touches on some parts of being an artist and parts of being a voter in our current country that are less positive, but there is always that silver lining, and there's always that next morning, that kind of feeling of things can still get better. We're not in a place where we're completely hopeless and completely lost, even though sometimes it feels that way.
Right.
I am your charlatan, two-way mirror to my following. I still be ringing in your ears long after every coast is clear and all the lights are low.
We all muddy the water, to make it seem less shallow. If our grief grows like a shadow in the morning, the sun, we need the dark to know the light.
One aspect of your music that I think sets it apart from a lot of other bands in, let's call it, the broad folk influence world, I think comes from the percussion, not just the sound of the drums, but I hear like a percussive influence kind of underlying a lot of the songs that gives them their character. Devin, maybe you can talk about the creative influence of percussion and beats in terms of the process of putting these songs together.
Yeah, I think that is also, like so many things with our band, something that has evolved over time in how the process is kind of approached. Because, speaking about Unlovely, at least as a record, we were workshopping those songs as the three of us and with our new fourth band member and with our producer for weeks and months before we went into the studio. And being able to have that level of sort of preparation, it really becomes a melting pot of creativity for something like the percussion parts. And we tend to put so many layers of different percussive elements into our songs. It's really kind of a group effort at this point. One of the things that is interesting, I hope, in our band is just like I am playing a bit of an unorthodox drum kit setup. And so it's not it's not your traditional drum kit. I'm not playing a kick drum with my foot and then have two free hands. I'm beating away on the bass drum with just my right hand, and I'm wearing bells and just have a whole bunch of sort of percussive accoutrements around. Martin has a tambourine and a trigger at his feet for more percussive options, and then we have a fourth band member that maybe we'll talk about at some point, but he is also adding different elements. So the way that we've approached building up the drum tracks and the percussion side of things has continued to evolve over time, and it's really quite the group effort at this point.
Okay, you're bringing a fourth person into the band. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, his name is Ariel Bernstein. He's been in Thieves camp for pretty much from the beginning, almost ever since we did Wolf in the Doorway, our first full-length record. He was like an assistant engineer essentially in the studio, and he is a really incredible percussionist and keyboard player. Like, he can kind of do it all. He's a jack of all trades. So he's always participated behind the scenes with us and been part of the recording process. And when we went in to make this record, I think we were all ready to kind of make a jump sonically and just, really make a bit more noise, have more options, and he was just an easy option to go with, because he's so talented, multi-talented, and can just kind of do anything we throw at him. And he's a really good person and nice person, which is the most important thing for us. But we've been playing with him now since about September on stage as the four of us, and he's jumping around between keys and guitar and tambourine, shakers, some vocals here and there. And it's just really exciting for us to be able to play with this new element that doesn't restrict us as much as maybe we were restricted as a trio. So
Right, and getting back to what we were talking about earlier, being able to do maybe different versions of some of your older songs too on the road.
Yeah, totally. That's a great point. Turning something that used to be a guitar part into a piano part, or just it's really fun to kind of get creative with how we can utilize his talents to build on old stuff, but also looking to the future and getting creative with the new songs.
That's great. Okay, let's lighten it up a little bit for a minute. Let's talk about the song Love is Easy. This is a beautiful sounding love song. I really like this one, but lyrically, aside from obviously the great sentiment in the chorus, it goes back to maybe what we were talking about earlier about the vagabond road life.
Yeah, totally. It kind of deals with the idea that the touring lifestyle is pretty difficult and maybe isn't as much what I thought it would be for me. I thought I would be incredibly at home on the road and would never need to, stop and have a home and settle down. But now that I'm getting into my wise old age, I'm kind of, it's not that I actively dislike touring, but it is really difficult. And so this song, while obviously being a love song, it also deals with things like how do we keep this moving forward as a career, and what if there's writer's block at some point, and what if the songs don't come anymore, and then there's no engine behind it all, and so those are some of the more sinister, I guess, sides of that song, even though it is a pretty sweet love song.
Bide my time writing rhymes and wrongs. What if the right rhymes don't come by anymore? And flooding come the years with all the youth of spring and tears, and still your doubt, that noisy engine labors on and on and on. Darling, loving you is such an easy thing to do. It's such an easy thing to do, so let me do it. Darling, loving you is such an easy thing to do. It's such an easy thing to do, so let me do it.
I'm going to take this as a cautionary tale because my wife and I, mostly me, kind of sometimes fantasize about leading a vagabond life and just moving from place to place, and she tries to tell me that I would not like it being rootless. So I'm gonna have to take what you're saying to heart and maybe change my plans.
I would, give it a shot, but have a backup plan.
I won't give up the apartment. So I don't intend to dig too much into your personal lives here, but I do sometimes talk about the position of the writer and the artist as they write about the people in their lives and how they try and navigate that with those people. In your case, the people in your lives that you are sometimes writing about are right there working on the song or in the band with you. Is that something you think about as you write a song like this?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's in one way, it's really fun to write a love song for my partner who is on stage with me, and I get to sing it not just to a crowd of people, but to her every night, and that's something special. Not a lot of people get to do that, really. But then also, it gets weird every now and then, because if I write a song about an ex-girlfriend and how, a relationship used to go or something, then there might be some personal issues there in terms of, oh, why are you still writing about this person? Right. And, that kind of thing. So I think it all comes down to trust and just kind of having a good base for your relationship first, and then really after that everything is manageable.
Right.
But I mean, we're a pretty good team, and usually there's not really a topic when it comes to songwriting that either one of us would feel is totally off limits,
Right.
I enjoy that my response to these could be like, "Why are you still writing about her?" instead of "Why are you texting her?" So it's just as like a slight alteration,
Yes. I think there's a big difference there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the song For Hitchens. I assume this is a reference to the late Christopher Hitchens.
It is.
Known for, among other things, for taking aim at those who would abuse power, right? So that kind of fits the theme of the album a little bit. Can you talk about this song?
Yeah, we are big Christopher Hitchens fans. He's sorely missed, especially in times like these.
Right.
His commentary, I think, especially right now, would be incredibly useful and important. But this song is also about the idea of bringing a child into the world and what kind of world we might be leaving for our child. And so that part is slightly different because, it relates still to Hitchens, because generally we would like to bring up our children in a world that he would have liked,
Right.
But yeah, that song is about the idea of this false idea that there is a right country and a wrong country, and that we in the U.S. are in the superior place, and that other countries are shithole countries, and so it kind of grapples with the idea that where you are from and where you were born is just completely arbitrary, and in another universe you might be born in a completely different place to a completely different family, and your luck could have turned completely upside down. And so I think just keeping that in mind is important. And lastly, the song was inspired by a song by our good friends River Wireless, and they wrote a song called "Born in the Right Country," and so that was one of the catalysts for this song as well.
I was born in the right country, where we choke on the smoke of wildfires past. Be the counterfeit heirs to the white and weeping edge of the world. We are long past the day we stood in the light.
Okay, let's talk big picture for a minute here. Would you say that your music, generally speaking, has broadened its scope and the influences? I think we've talked about this a little bit over time. It has always been eclectic in a certain ways, but I hear it becoming maybe even more so. Do you see this as maybe opening up creative possibilities for you from the songwriting process, since you're kind of opening up the sounds that are coming into the songs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not only are we trying to just write whatever comes to us, and so we're trying to not restrict ourselves in a way that might box us in a way. So I think we're still in the process of really finding exactly what we want to do, and I think striking the balance there is slightly difficult because you can't necessarily have records where every song is different, and you're kind of messing with your listeners' heads, because if they like one song, they might really not like another because it's a completely different style, or sonically is completely different. So I think we're still in the process of broadening, but maybe in the future that will lead to a kind of narrowing down and figuring out a more focused sound, because I think that's kind of generally the idea. But yeah, we're just trying to not box ourselves in. We're trying to write the songs that we are passionate about, and so if we want to write a bossa nova tune, and then there we go, then that's what we're going to do. And if we want to write a kind of doom metal trash song about not sleeping and with affected blood-curdling screams, then we're going to do that. So I think for us, it's kind of
I'm in favor of all of that.
Yeah, if we want to write a jazz metal song, then we'll do that. But yeah, it's kind of just about having fun with the songwriting process, because if it's not fun, then what's the point?
Yep. Okay, I'm going to let you go feed your meter in a couple of minutes. Let's do one more question. We've touched on this a couple of times along the way, but let me hear your official thoughts. You're kind of known for your energetic and engaging live shows. What do you all think is important to a good live performance? What is it that you're trying to do out there?
I bet we all have different answers to this, so I'll start it off. But for me, it's authenticity. For me, it's not trying to do anything that you're not comfortable doing just for the sake of putting on a show. And so I struggle sometimes because I'm pretty introverted and I don't move around a ton on stage because I'm kind of focused on the song and making sure I don't make any mistakes. And so yeah, I think that's something I struggle with in terms of trying to make sure that the audience is engaged not just by the sounds but also by the visuals. And so that's a weird line for me. But I think, yeah, generally being authentic, if you're being forthright and honest, then that will shine through more than anything else. At least that's what I hope. So.
Anybody else want to take a shot at that one?
Yeah, I mean, I feel similarly to Martin. I'm very shy and introverted, but when I step on stage, it sort of feels like home. And I love fashion and clothes, and I love to just use the stage as an alternate personality and really come alive. And I hope the audience enjoys watching what we feel as home on stage.
For me, it's such a unique. There's no way quite like it to connect with people. I mean that every person in the room, from my bandmates to the crowd and the audience, the life force behind what gives us this opportunity to do what we do. Like I really do try to think every night about that relationship, because without the people out there purchasing a ticket, caring about the music, knowing the songs, we just literally can't do this job. So it's so unique, that relationship to this job, and I'm kind of obsessed with it, and almost get like emotional about it on stage and right after shows sometimes, because it's something I would have a really hard time living without. I've become a bit obsessed with it. So that connection with the fans is so important, but then also the connection between the band members and like what that time on stage means every day, when we're that 75 minutes out of our 24-hour day is really what we are out there working for. But the whole rest of the day is filled with so much work that most people would just think is really shitty. Like, this isn't obviously the dream job all the time that people chalk it up to be. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that make the machine work, and that can understandably cause a group of people that care about each other to go a little crazy on an individual level and as a group. And sometimes we have terrible days, and we're not getting along and we're not connecting. But for this group, like, the live performance has always been a time of bonding, and like would be the glue that kind of keeps us together even on the worst days. So I think the collision of those relationships going on between what we're experiencing together as the four of us on stage, and then what it represents to have all the people there at the show as the life force behind our career. It's so unique, and that's what kind of makes it special for me, I think, and I try to focus on that.
That's great. I think it's a great place to leave it too. I want to thank the three of you again for taking the time to talk with us today, and congratulations on getting this record out there. And I really look forward to catching a show and seeing everything you've just talked about in person myself.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Yeah, thanks for your thoughtful questions. We all, I'm sure I speak for everyone, we really appreciate it. It's not every day that we get, people who do the deep dive and aren't just asking how we met. So that's nice.
Well, I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking to you all. So have fun out there.
All right, thanks. We'll see you in Chicago.
All right, yeah, thanks.
I wanna be a poet too. Fit as many flowers in my mouth as they do. The readiness is all I need, and I can back up pretty easy.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Tell You What, the podcast. Thanks to Martin, Callie, and Devin for being such thoughtful participants. Go buy their new record, Unlovely. It is really great. Stay tuned for more upcoming discussions. I'm going to pick up the pace on releasing new episodes for the time being. I have a couple in the works right now. So maybe folks have more downtime and have time to discover some new artists. Please spread the word. If you like what you are hearing, get this great new music out in front of more music lovers. We'll meet back here soon. In the meantime, remember, music is the best.